Hello, welcome back. Welcome if you're new. If you're new here, my name is Elena. I'm in a big jacket. It snowed a lot. Anyways, I'm at the library though. I'm going to drop off some books. I'm not going to go inside. I'm just doing a quick drop off of some books that I've already read. Sometimes if I'm running errands, I'll go and do that in case somebody else wants to pick them up. But I thought I'd give you my rundown on what I've read so far in January. I ended up reading The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. I checked this out because if you caught my last video on where I read Finding Dorothy, I talked about how I wanted to read this classic because of that book. So I did end up reading it. I read it for part of a readathon that Oshina from Oshina Gotta Read 'Em All was hosting, and I really enjoyed it. I liked it. I don't think that I'm going to pick up the other ones yet. There's more in the Oz series, but I don't think that I'm going to pick those up. It didn't pique my interest right now enough to want to do it. I may do it later in the year. I'm very much a mood reader, I'm finding, and so I am glad that I read the classic and found out where the film was inspired from, or how it was inspired, and the differences between the two. So I did finish that. Excited. I realized that I already had a classic done for the new year. So I also finished, I started this in December, but I finished it in January, The Irresistible Blueberry Bakeshop and Cafe by Mary Simses. So I finished this one. The library is popping this morning, so I'm kind of embarrassed because I'm in the car talking to myself, but I finished this book. It was pretty good. I liked it. There were parts of it that were a little bit slower to me, but all in all, it was a decent book. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I thought it was a sweet story. So kind of right in the middle of the road there for me. So I'm going to turn these in and then get on with my errands today, and I'll let you know if there's anything else that I read for the month. Okay. Don't mind me. I'm sitting on the floor. I've got a donation bag going back here in the background. Very informal. But I am hanging out with my younger son, and he's watching something, and I'm trying to read the City Baker's Guide. I'll put the right title somewhere here. And I had this book on hold for a really long time. I wish I could remember where the recommendation came from, somewhere on YouTube, but I can't remember where. And I've been struggling with this book to read it. I'm just not getting into it. I'm just now going to start chapter 8. But yeah, from the first page is the main character having an affair, and I guess I didn't realize it. I kept reading, kept pushing through, thinking, okay, maybe it'll be a redeeming story, maybe it'll get better. I don't know. Like I said, I can't remember where the recommendation came from. But I'm already going to start chapter 8, and I am still on the struggle bus with this. There is some kind of secret that's swirling around the town they're in that nobody wants to fully talk about. But yeah, and I'm trying to remember, I mean, it must get good, right? Because so many people are requesting it. That's why it was on hold for so long, right? I don't know. I'm gonna give it a couple more chapters. I really don't want to start the year off DNFing a book, but that may just be the way it goes. So just wanted to check in with that book and let you know that's where I'm at with it. Okay, I need to return some library books, but before I do, I wanted to give you the wrap up of the trilogy, the Folk Air series. So I finished reading the entire trilogy. I checked out all three while I was at the library, and then so I needed to read them before they had to be returned. Going in, I had heard that The Cruel Prince was okay and that it got better as the series went on. I would sort of agree with that. I do think that the books get better as the series get on. These are fantasy, considered fantasy, and I read the novella in between on an ebook version. I would say though, they're secular fantasy books, so be warned of that, I guess. There isn't too many steamy bits in it, but there is a lot of illusion. And in here, in case you haven't heard of the series or you don't know what it's about, it is a world that we are introduced to where fairies and humans both coincide, both live. There are 3 daughters. One is the daughter of a fairy man and a human woman. And then she leaves that world, the mom leaves the world and remarries a human man and has two more children. Now, two more daughters. The fairy, the first fairy husband, comes back and ends up murdering the parents, and then takes the girls back to the fairy world because he feels it's his responsibility to raise the other two since they don't have parents now. Kind of a sick, twisted beginning of a story here. That's how it goes. And so the two younger girls are twins, and they constantly, the one in particular that the series is mainly about, Jude, has this constant fight of belonging to the fairy world because that's where she was raised since she was young, and then knowing that she's human and can never fully be a part of the fairy world. And so we follow her, and that turmoil goes through all 3 books. It was an interesting read. There were parts definitely that were good, and there were parts that I glossed over because I read all 3 back to back. They're kind of running into each other. I will say that The Queen of Nothing, I actually felt this book was just kind of okay. I liked the first 2 books better, but that was just my opinion. I know that a lot of people, it's not a popular opinion. A lot of people felt the other way, that the first book was just okay and the other 2 were better. But I finished this series up. I wanted to give my little quick recap on it. There are, I'm sure, tons more of in-depth in here if you want to know more about that. Really quickly, because my battery's going to run out, I wanted to sneak in and tell you about this book that I read in January, Praying with the Enemy, based on a true story. This is by Stephen T. Collis, or Collis, C-O-L-L-I-S. Sorry, I know I got a glare there from the light. But this book here, I picked it up from the library on a whim. This is based on a true story of an American POW during the Korean War and a North Korean soldier who became unlikely allies, united in their shared faith in God during a daring escape to freedom. This is not a book that I normally pick up, but I don't know. But clearly I picked it up. I thought it was really good. I did switch back and forth between reading the book and the actual book and then listening to it online because, like I said, there were some parts that were tougher because it is about war, and it is some pretty sad stuff. So I could feel myself not wanting to pick up the book because of that, but I wanted to know the story, and so that's when the audio version came in really handy. So I would listen to the audio version as I did stuff around the house, and then I would switch back and sit down and finish reading up the book here. But this one, I do recommend it. I didn't rate it, I don't think. If I did, I would probably give it a 4.5 star. The only reason it's not a 5-star for me is because it's not really my jam. It's not the thing that I normally read, but I really enjoyed it. I'm amazed that it is based off a true story. I just think it gives hope. Like I said, it is some hard stuff to read, so be warned about that, but it is amazing to hear or read how God used these 2 men and how he brought them together and their lives and how it just changed others' lives. So another book that I read for January, battery's gonna die. Let's move on to the next book. So there are still, at the time of filming, there's still 3 more days of January left. So I'm just getting cozied up here with my blanket to sit in and let you know what I read. So far, I've read 12 books, which was a lot for me. I'm a pretty fast reader, but I also will get stuck in a story and want to finish it, especially with series books. Books that are in a series, I want to finish that world, and I just want to know how it ends. Even with books sometimes that I'm not very fond of, I am like, can we just get it over with? Because I do DNF books once in a while, but I don't like to. Anyways, let's talk about what I did read though. I don't think I DNF'd any books yet. I am in the middle of reading a couple more, but I don't know if I'll finish them before January. Let me finish telling you what I thought about the City Baker's Guide to Country Living. So you saw from the clip that I couldn't get into it at first. The book is a secular book, and it does have some redeeming qualities, but there are some where I was like, really? And it just wasn't my cup of tea. It may be yours. Clearly, like I was saying, it's a lot of people's preference because it was on hold for months. And that was the digital version of it. I don't even think our library had a physical copy of the book. Just they only had the digital one. Anyways,
I did finish it. The main character takes you on this journey. Like I said, it starts with an affair, so be warned of that. And then you want to hope that the main character is making some changes in her life and going to start making some good choices. And then you're like, oh, is she? She is. No, she's not. And you just keep going that way throughout the story. And then towards the end, things do kind of tie up neatly. It is, like I said, redeeming in the way that I would say it ends happily. But you go on a journey. And so it was okay. It was a solid maybe like 3.5 stars. I don't think I actually rated it on Storygraph, but I would say somewhere in there. If I had to wait on hold again for it, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't have put it on hold and waited that long to read it. But because it came up, and I had been on hold for so long, I read it. The other books that I read was The Stand-In by Lily Chu. This was a good book. This was like a Prince and Pauper type book, except it is I believe she's an actress, and it is just, of course, like this, not a nobody, because nobody is nobody, but you know, a nobody famous person, and they don't exactly swap lives, but Gracie, the main character, stands in for, I believe her name is Fang Li. So Fang Li is the famous actress, and Gracie, Fang Li approaches Gracie and says, look, I'm getting real tired and I need some breaks, but I'm not allowed to take breaks. I need to be seen out in the public. Since you look so much like me, why don't you go out to the parties and things, and I'll stay home and rest, and then I'll just do my work like regular. So Gracie is going through some things in her life. Her boss is a jerk. He is really gross. He is essentially sexually harassing her at work, and then she ends up getting fired, and Gracie has to find her voice and find out, figure out what she's gonna do, all while she takes up Fang Li on this offer to impersonate her. Now, of course, this all has to be on the hush hush, and things ensue. It goes from there. I thought this book was a cute book. I think it is a closed door romance, but it definitely is a secular romance book. So there are portions that maybe allude to the romance, but if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think it is one that goes into a great deal, if I'm remembering correctly. So this book, I thought, like I said, I thought it was a cute read. Same kind of the genre that I really enjoy reading. I'm next to a window and the sun's coming in and out. Sorry about that. But I give it 4 stars. I think I did rate this one, and I gave it a 4 stars. I would pick it up again. I would recommend it. I liked the book. The other book that I read, Toni Shiloh's, from her Faith and Fortune series, I read The Trouble with Love. I read this on digital format as well. I read a lot of books on digital format. I was doing a lot of reading before bedtime, and so that's when I was getting in my reading, and then at appointments and things like that. So I have read the other books that I've read by Toni Shiloh. I think I've read one other. I've read her To Catch a Prince and To Win a Prince. Those books are fantastic. If you've never read those, those are both 5-star reads for me. This one, The Trouble with Love, I also thought was a cute contemporary romance book. I like the way that Toni Shiloh talks about faith in her books and how she intertwines them in her character. This book follows Holiday Brown. She is a platinum record multi-million-dollar singer. Her dad is also famous and sings, and then she lives with 2 other famous roommates. And so the trio of roommates, I believe that is where the series takes off, is that the first one follows Holiday Brown and her adventures. There is a stalker that is threatening her roommate. And in this story, we don't get a full conclusion, like a full wrap-up of that. It continues on, and I believe it continues on in the next 2 books in the series. It is a romance, and I would say like maybe a redeeming book as well, like a redemption book, a redemption story. Sorry. A redemption story maybe, because Holiday is not a believer. She is not saved at the beginning of this book. So we go through that journey with her, and then she also finds herself being attracted to one of her roommate's brother, who previously they didn't really get along. When they were younger, she had a slight crush on him, and then he said some things to her, really pushed her away, and ever since then it's been very hands-off type relationship, and actually they've just kind of been not true enemies, but a kind of enemies to lover type deal. So this one was a really good book too. I have not picked up the other 2 books in the series. The next book is The Truth About Fame, and that follows the roommate that is actually has the stalker. And then the book after that, book 3, is The Price of Dreams, and that follows the 3rd roommate's adventure. I haven't picked up the other 2 books. I did check on my library, but they didn't have them, so I think that's why I just kind of paused it for a while. Another book I read, this also is digital, Diamonds or Donuts. This one was okay. This one was by Lucie Ulrich. I give this one 3 stars. 3 stars doesn't mean it's bad. To me, 3 stars is kind of like, it's just okay. It's not fantastic. It's not awful. It's okay. So this one, Diamonds or Donuts, this one, we follow Sarah Alexander. She is a teacher, and her fiance is an archaeologist, I believe. And so in the beginning of the book, her archaeologist fiance gets invited to go on this dig of a lifetime, and of course it happens right before their wedding. Now the archaeologist, his family is very wealthy, and so they are used to doing things a certain way and having certain control over their son's life. So he goes on the dig and pauses the wedding. Her soon-to-be mother-in-law is very hands-on and wants to plan the wedding down to what the bride will wear. She has suggestions and says, this is tradition, this is what we've always worn, blah, blah, blah. We follow Sarah about how she is kind of coming to grips with, does she really want to marry into this family? Is her fiance someone that she truly loves? And while she's deciding all this, since her fiance has put a pause in their wedding plans, she had already given her notice at work and her notice on her apartment. So she needs to find a new job while he's gone and find a place to live. So her best friend just happens to live in this amazing beach coastal town. Her mom, her best friend's mom, I think she's the principal or something at a school. Anyways, she moves to this town, starts a job there, meets somebody, and it goes from there. The only thing I would say about this book that you kind of already know which way it's going to go, but I was torn with the way it played out a little bit. Not until the end did it give me peace with her going the route she went with, but up until then, I was just like, this feels not so great. This just kind of feels icky. I don't know. Can we just be honest? Can we just talk about what's bugging us? But so that was the 3 stars for me. It was just okay. Then I read All Last Summer by Stephanie J. Scott. I didn't realize it was a series book until I was halfway through the book. This is from a series called Love on Summer Break. And this one I picked up because I also read it digitally, and I picked it up because I was just looking for another read to read in the evening hours. I've been trying to not be watching as many videos and things like that in the evening and read. Ideally, I would read a actual book, but if you've ever fallen asleep reading and that falls on your plate, books are heavy. So also, I don't want to rely on even a small reading light. I don't own a small enough reading light, but a small reading light, I don't want to bug my husband with the light. So the screen light doesn't bug him as much. So we read All Last Summer. All Last Summer is a young adult contemporary romance as well. And it is a clean romance, but it is not a Christian romance. So just throwing that stuff out there. This follows Lila, and Lila is, I believe she's going to be a junior or a senior, so they're in high school, and she has kind of revamped her life to be popular or to climb a social ladder at her school. And she tucks away and hides things that she would deem nerdy or not as likable. And she has got the perfect boyfriend. She's got the great best friend. And then her boyfriend, she come to find out, is cheating on her. And this is how the book begins. He left her, he was cheating on her and left her for the other girl. Technically, Lila's the one that breaks up with him, but because she sees the 2 of them together. So And then it kind of goes from there. It becomes a summer break. He is actually going away for the summer. She was supposed to go on this trip with him, but because of this, she calls off the trip and decides to stay home. It is a summer abroad school type program. So her parents, because she's called this trip off, are like, you need to pay us back. We're sorry about the breakup. That was a horrible thing that happened, but this is a lot of money and actions have consequences. It's actually something they say often in the book, and you know, parents have to parent. So it's about Lila trying to earn back the money. She ends up getting another job during the summer and is in close contact with her ex-boyfriend's 3 best friends. So it follows along their summer. We find out more things about her ex-boyfriend that maybe weren't on the up and up, a little bit more about who he was. Lila gets back to who she feels she really is and coming to grips with that. And she's trying to decide whether or not she wants to just go ahead and be honest and be that girl, or if she wants to continue on and be something that she's not wholly into. Her whole heart is not into this persona that she's made. And we kind of see these best friends of the ex-boyfriend and if they were really friends and all that ensues. I thought this was a really sweet, cute read. I liked it. It is part of a series. I am going to check out the next book in this series that follows the circle of friends. I just haven't yet because on one of my library cards, I have like a limit of digital reads that I can do, and I reached that for the month of January. So I'm just waiting for February 1st to roll around to maybe check that out. I think that is all the books that I read, that I've gone over it here. So I think that's all 12 books. In case you want to recap, the first one was The Irresistible Blueberry Bakeshop and Cafe, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, The City Baker's Guide to Country Living, The Cruel Prince, The Lost Sisters, that was the novella that I read, The Wicked King, The Queen of Nothing, The Stand-In, The Trouble with Love, Praying with the Enemy, Diamonds or Donuts, and All Last Summer. Now, for February, I don't have a to-be-read list. I do have some books that I've checked out from the library and kind of a vlog I think I'm going to do with that, where I let the librarian pick out books for me and then we're going to read them along. So that should come up after this. So if you're not, be sure that you're subscribed. Notifications so you don't miss any videos, all the good stuff. Thumbs up if you like the video, yada yada. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you don't know or you just need to be reminded, maybe the one to tell you you are deeply and truly loved. So appreciated. I honestly, truly appreciate you taking your time out and hanging out here with me. Thanks so much for watching.